residents, citizens of Baltimore that almost exactly 3 years ago stood up to a corporate giant and prevailed. Last Monday, we filed a lawsuit on behalf of 3 women who would not be bullied or bulldozed by BG&E. BG&E, when we were growing up, was the most trusted utility in town. It was the only utility in town, but we had faith in it. We trusted it. We believed that they would fix things when things were broken, that they would keep us safe, that they had the public interest as a public utility in mind. I don't know exactly when that changed, but over the last span of years, it is crystal clear that BG&E and Exelon, its corporate parent, have put profits above people. They have put dollars above safety. And that has reared its ugly head in many ways, in many forms, over time. A few years ago, I was here in a sweatshirt on a warm morning, checking in on some friends who were protesting BG&E. Sandy Seward and Maggie Fitzsimmons and Claudia Towles were 3 of the women, 3 of the people who were trying to stop BG&E from shutting off people's gas. These were not folks who were refusing to pay their bills. These were not folks who were delinquent on their monthly payments. These were folks who didn't want dangerous external regulators installed with the aid of boreholes through their historic marble in their beautiful homes here in Federal Hill and all across the city. That day, those women and their lawyer made it clear to police and to BG&E that what they were proposing to do was unlawful, that they were not allowed to turn off people's gas. And there were a number of reasons why it was unlawful. They didn't have a permit for the 400 block of Warren Avenue. They didn't have a permit to do termination work. They didn't give the 14 days termination notice that they are required under state regulations to give. And they didn't have authority under the contract, the gas service tariff that BG&E has with all of its customers here in Maryland. Every one of those things are things that residents shared with BG&E and told them that they were lying to police. They were lying when they said they had a permit. They were lying when they said they had authority. They were lying when they said they'd given notice. But BG&E pulled its strings, made the phone calls that went all the way up to the mayor, and they bullied and bulldozed their way through the legal obstacles, through the law. And after a 8-hour standoff, 3 of those women were restrained in plastic cuffs, shoved into a police transport van, and hauled off to the Baltimore City Detention Center, where they would spend some 20 hours in custody. The indignities of that we chronicle in this lawsuit that we filed last week. Last Monday, that lawsuit is directed at BG&E, at Exelon, its corporate parent, as well as its subcontractor, Northern Pipeline, who is doing a lot of the dirty work, including providing some of that false information. In a lot of cases, we have to do a lot of digging to find out exactly what happened. On that particular day, because there were a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen law enforcement there, we have the benefit of body camera video footage from virtually every angle, showing what BG&E was telling police, showing what police and BG&E were telling politicians, showing what the citizens were doing. I'm going to play for you guys a portion of that video. A full segment of it is referenced in the complaint. A transcript of it is provided in the appendix. and a link to it is included in the press release from this morning. But I just want you guys to zoom in and listen for a moment to a shortened version of the clip that we submitted to the court. Would you pause that right there? I'm going to just, because I know it's hard to hear, just to provide some context as to what you're seeing. That was, on the phone, David Ralph, BG&E's general counsel. He had been advised that the body camera videos were on, and he nevertheless said, just let him know that I, the general counsel for BG&E, am the former city solicitor for Baltimore. And if they have any questions, tell them to call the city solicitor and tell the city solicitor to call me. So if there was an evaluation of what was lawful and unlawful, they decided that the former city solicitor, with a little bit of muscle and political strings, should be the one directing the city solicitor for Baltimore's assessment of what the law is and what it is not. This is not something that they're doing cloak and dagger on text messages that we didn't see. This is in front of the police. They are saying, Lieutenant, if there's any questions, call the city solicitor and tell them to call me, because I was the former city solicitor for Baltimore. About that. I think it's important to understand the context of what was happening. We were literally in the process of writing a complaint to challenge BG&E's authority to do this. And we said to BG&E, I said to BG&E, in 16 hours, this is going to be in a courtroom. And the court can tell us whether you have lawful authority to do this or not. If you have lawful authority to do this, you don't, then go ahead and proceed. But if we're right and you don't have lawful authority to do this, which we are willing to bet on, then please don't do this. Just wait until the court decides. They decided they didn't need to wait for the court to decide. They thought they knew what their contract said, and it turns out they were wrong. It's important to know, as we explained in the complaint, that every forum that then considered the question in the days ahead, the Public Service Commission, the Circuit Court for Baltimore City, the Commission on Historic and Architectural Preservation, ruled in favor of the residents. The Public Service Commission issued an order that said BG&E has no authority under its tariff to turn off or to threaten to turn off gas service simply because a person refuses to get an external regulator. The Circuit Court, after hearing argument, ordered BG&E to turn all the gas service back on. The houses that they terminated that day after the arrest had to get turned on. Houses that they turned off the days before and the days after all had to get turned back on because they didn't have lawful authority to do it. We knew it, they knew it, but they told the police something else to try to make a point. I should have explained something at the outset. Under Maryland law, it is not uncommon that individuals who believe they were wrongfully arrested bring a lawsuit against the police who arrested them. Under Maryland law, you are also permitted to bring a lawsuit against a private party if the private party furnished false information to police to get them to make the arrest. The situation you can all imagine is a neighbor calls on another person and tells the police that there's a person on their property. They know it's not their property. They know that the person is not wrongfully trespassing, but they tell the police that this is their property. And because of that information, the police don't have time to go and check the land records. The police arrest the person because the instigator said, that person's on my property. Well, it turns out, in that situation, you can bring a lawsuit specifically against the person who was the instigator who provided the false information. I know it's hard to hear. I hope you guys will watch it. It's a 6-minute clip if you just watch it at home. At multiple points, the police say what this lieutenant is saying. Oh my God, this is so bad. We can't arrest juveniles who are causing problems. We can't arrest people on dirt bikes, but we're going to arrest these, no disrespect, elderly women who are protesting in Federal Hill. This is going to make us look so bad. That was the clearest evidence that this was not the police doing an independent investigation wanting to make arrests. This was BG&E pushing their agenda over the objections of the lieutenants and officers that were there. In a moment, you're going to hear maybe the most compelling account of this, where a supervisor says, they're probably right, referring to the protesters, but they don't have the money or the resources or the lawyers to go up against BG&E. This is a Fortune 500 company. They're going to bury you before you get anywhere. That's the police officer saying, the protesters are probably right, but it's BG&E. They've got lawyers and resources. We can't resist.